And welcome to the Grindhouse. We are back. I think we were back last week too, so we're here. I want to apologize for technical issues. So, for whatever reason, Streamlabs, they used to call it Melon. Now I think it's called Streamlabs Live Studio. Works great with 4 people, and as soon as you add a fifth, 2 people freeze up. So I will apologize in advance for Pat and Catherine, although they are here vocally, and maybe if we switched around cameras at some point or during segments, we can get everyone kind of back on track. But anyway, I'm JC. I'm your host. With me tonight are Catherine, Pat O, GM Mike, and Terry, and we're here to talk about a couple things. So first of all, we're going to start off with the Gygax 75 challenge, which I will be the first person to go, ooh, I didn't finish it. I'm such a loser. But I have a feeling Mike finished it for all of us. Or I'll look at the expression on his face to gauge that. I'm going to bitch about WotC again, so there's a big shock. We have Pat, who will talk about Muppet Mayhem, and I think there's something else I wanted to chat about, but I kind of wanted to also just do a couple of trips down nostalgia lane. For those. And actually, it's only nostalgia lane for people who honestly lived in the Bay Area in the 1970s. So I guess it'll be a little self-serving, as what they call it. Oh God, there's a term they use in theater, and I can't think of what it's called now. But it's basically just self-serving theatrical masturbation. I think that was the term.
Having been in theater in high school, while I've heard both of those words, I've never heard them put together.
But so anyway, let's jump into our first segment. Let me actually bring up our thing here, because this will be the last time we'll play it, and I'll be sad that we won't play it again. So here we go. The Gygax 75 challenge. We love it. We all know it. And so anyway, let us go and start. So anyway, I think I was saying earlier that, yes, I failed. I made it through steps 1 through 4, so I will say that. And as I was telling Terry earlier, I did publish a campaign setting 12 years ago. So with that said, I kind of did my Gygax campaign setting. It's a cop-out, but
you did 4 more steps than I did.
There we go. So, but, and I know Pat and Terry, you weren't particularly part of that design, although Pat, I know you were working. Oh, so actually, before we just jump into it, is everything developed for Gamehole?
Yeah, I got approval, and it'll be run, I think it's Friday, October 20th. Badges are on sale for Gamehole, but not the full, you can't register for games yet. So definitely we think about going. And if you're going, sign up for the Tomb of Kevin McAllister Friday night, 7 p.m.
Yeah, that just makes me sad that I won't be at Gamehole this year. The last time I went, it was it was pre-COVID, I think.
So, yeah, you had brought it. I didn't even know about it until you had brought it to my attention, and then I found out that one of my buddies from like the paranormal community, he goes there with his wife every year, and me and him meet up there now, and it's a good time. It's way different than GaryCon. It's much more chill, and it's not as super crowded, and Vince Vaughn isn't walking around and shit, so it's definitely worth checking out.
So is Vince Vaughn not walking around a plus or a minus?
Depends how you feel about Vince Vaughn, Terry.
I saw Vince Vaughn. There was some promo pictures or whatever on Facebook of Vince Vaughn at GaryCon.
Yeah,
and it's kind of one of those things where you sit there and go, "Wow, I didn't know that person was a gamer."
Him, Jon Favreau, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, Obviously, Joe Magliano, who I don't know, all those people. Matthew Lillard was there the year of the wedding when that chick who's now like ousted from D&D.
Oh, Satine.
Yeah, she had her wedding
yeah.
there last year, and I don't know. There's usually just people there, but it's like whatever. You know.
Speak about theatrical masturbation and circle jerks. The Satine Phoenix wedding encompasses all of that and much more. And Satine, I will say I love you. Actually, I know Satine. She's a really good person, but that
She's probably
whole
watching.
wedding, yeah, yeah, I'm sure. But that whole wedding was definitely, I don't know. It felt more like an event than it did like I don't know, when a wedding to me, because my wife and I got married at a game convention, Total Con, and obviously we didn't have all the cool Satine Phoenix-y sort of fanfare or anything. But ours was a legitimate wedding, and it was meant to be, I just kind of felt I don't know, like it was
tacky.
Yeah, tacky. Thank you. That's one.
And all the Diamond and Platinum Pass members got invited to it. So if you had bought the higher tier game badges, you got to go to it Thursday night, which is kind of like, I mean, I guess if you want to go to a stranger's wedding, just it was like that whole weekend. Whenever you were at a table, people were like, well, "Were you there?" Like, "Oh, who'd you sit by? Who'd you see?" Shit like that. It kind of like overshadowed the whole thing, which I don't know.
Yeah,
it wasn't the end of the world. It was just, and now all that shit happened like 6 months later. It's so crazy what happens in the course of a year. Because now, if they showed up to Gary Con, they'd probably get run out with pitchforks and torches.
All right, so we're gonna get 2 of these tonight, then. So here we go.
Oops! What did I do?
You hit the button.
You're not supposed to press the red button.
Sorry about that.
No, Gary Con. All right, so. Luke, again, someone I love dearly. I worked with him with Gygax Magazine back when we were TSR and producing it. And so the thing is, I hate that, where it's like you're considered basically a little plebe unless you pay for these diamond and platinum level memberships.
Ew.
And you actually, in order to actually play with famous designers and shit like that, you actually have to cough up like $1,000 plus. Like if you're one of the
fucking bad, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and it's like if you want to pay the $80 or $100, $125, I don't know how much it is these days, to go regularly, you get to go to the plebe games. You get to go play with, random people, and not to say it's a bad thing, but let's say you really had your heart on playing on in a game with Jim Ward or someone like that. You want to play Metamorphosis Alpha with Jim Ward. You're coughing up $1,200.
Well, not to say that you're wrong on your own show, but you're wrong. So how it works is like when there's like the diamond tier, right? But they'll only release, now there's only 200 people that have that, I'm sorry, like 10 or like a really small amount. But they only have access to 1/3 of the tickets. Then there's the gold level. They only have access to 1/3 of the tickets, but there's only 200 of those. Then there's the plebeian level, which there's like 1,100, and those people have access to the other 1/3 of the tickets. So, like, as a guy that ran a table, when the diamond badges went live, you could only buy, and my table was for only 6 people because that's all I could fucking handle at once. 2 of them were available, and that was it. So, and then when gold went live, another 2 became available. You know what I'm saying? So that if you're at the plebeian level, technically you're fighting with a larger crowd, but you still have 2 seats available. So you're not entirely wrong. But it's not like you completely lose your shot and all the rich kids buy their shit right up front. You know what I mean? They basically have 3 chances to register for something. You have 1, and you're in the horde, right? So it's like, you got to be a little bit more strategic.
You want to hear something interesting about a non RPG con that had RPG stuff that I didn't expect it. Every year in Vegas, they have a writers convention called 20 Books Vegas. It's in November. And last year, Luke Gygax was there and running games. And I'm like,
Oh.
Luke Gygax, what? This is a writers convention. What do you mean?
His dad was a writer. I don't know.
It was just weird. But he was doing 4-hour sets like the entire week with whoever was going to come in and play. You had to pay a little bit, but I think it was like $40, $60, something like that, if you wanted to play with Luke Gygax for 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm sure it was WotC was behind it, and don't get me started. I don't want to hit that.
I never heard that mentioned at all. I believe he was invited by someone that was running it on a personal level as opposed to WotC.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So anyway, I will leave this little rant here before Luke never talks to me again, or I never get invited to GaryCon again.
But refreshingly enough, Gamehold does not do that at all. Gamehold is just one tier level. I think there's probably two, but it's not as structured. There's no pay scale for it, which is nice.
And the guy who runs it, Alex Kamer, I think his last name is Kramer. Anyway, awesome guy, really nice, heart of gold sort of thing. And he really cares about the convention more than how much money he can, carry in buckets up to his mattress. So I will just put that out there. So anyway, Gygax Challenge. How about that? I'm not going to play the opening again. Anyway, so Gygax Challenge, like I said, I made it to stage 4. So stage 5, or the larger world, is basically sketching out the geography of a continent, outlining other worlds or planes that the characters can visit, develop a pantheon of gods and powers, create some higher level non-player characters and villains, create a calendar with festivals and other important dates, generate some events and rumors from other lands, create more magical relics, make an encounter table for each terrain, develop a rival company of adventurers or mercenaries. Wait, there's more. Seed the map with unusual features, and make a list of system tweaks or house rules your setting will require.
But it's not all of them. It's only a few of them that you have to do.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's only 3 of them.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. It's a lot less overwhelming.
All right, because that's why I kind of stopped. I said, I'm not doing this.
You just blew off stage 5 because you thought it was too much work, and here you're learning. You could have just done it.
Yeah, you
could have just done it.
Back off.
I think it took me 20 minutes because, I half cheated because Ryutama has its own half setting, so a lot of my stuff was very easy to figure out.
All right, so let's debrief with Catherine and Mike. So Catherine, why don't you go first? And if there's anything you need to share, you can go ahead and use the screen share on the app. I believe I have it.
Mine is just a messy text document, so I won't share that. I'll just read it out loud. So it's actually pretty short. I had gods, festivals, and rituals. And I also had the idea of, not rituals, rivals. I'm dyslexic. Can't even read my own text.
I don't feel bad. I can never read my own writing either.
It's in a text document. Anywho, so for gods, I have the gods are dragons, and all dragons are revered as divine, though this can range from more divine-like beings comparable to traditional gods to more like kami, like spiritual gods that are lesser in power. I have yin and yang are seen as the highest gods as they control day and night and gave birth to the 4 seasons. The seasonal dragons are seen as secondary gods, but they are still heavily worshipped and respected. In some cases, even more worshipped and respected and more well known because the seasons and how influential they are on everything in the game. Ryujin are more comparable to demigods, able to change the world around them, But unlike cosmic gods and the seasonal dragons, the Ryujin live openly with the people, as that's the GM's player character. Terrain and weather dragons are seen more as like kami and spirits. They are highly respected and revered, but occasionally they do need to be dealt with, as they can completely alter ecosystems. And that was kind of based on Monster Hunter with like the Elder Dragons, and how usually Monster Hunter tries to go for a respect of the realm thing. You're not hunting monsters because they're monsters, you're hunting monsters because something's gone wrong, they're altering the ecosystem, and you need to correct it. And then for festivals, I have the start of the 4 seasons. The start of the 4 seasons each has their own festival. Full moons, new moons, and blue moons all have their own festivals. The full moons and new moon festivals are less flashy due to how common they are compared to blue moons, which only happen once a year. The solstices are both special times and have a huge festival each. I didn't really go into details like what these festivals are like. I figured I'd kind of develop that later on as I was like actually playing the game and like talking with my players and figure out what kinds of things they'd want to do in festivals. Because like Ryotoma is all about building the world together. And so I still want to leave a lot of room for that. Noon and midnight each have their own smaller rituals. Noon is about eating a lunch that you'll remember for the rest of the day. The midnight ritual is celebrated more at dusk, so proper sleep can be had, and is more about sharing memories and stories of events you had throughout the day. During the full moons, new moons, and blue moons, there is an exception, and a 4th meal of the day is had at midnight, which would technically be the first meal of the day. This 4th meal is usually lighter, more like a snack. Instead of it being more family focused like supper, it's more community focused, kind of like a midnight festival. And then for rivals, I had a rival trading company composed of a noble, a minstrel, a merchant, and an artisan. The noble gives the group connections to powerful people. The minstrel is good at making stories off of the wares that the artisan makes. And the merchant makes sure to get the best deals with, incorporating those stories and epic tales, which may or may not be true. And yeah.
All right. No, that's great. So now that you have this all fleshed out, are you going to do anything with it? Are you going to publish or just kind of keep it as kind of, hey, this was a cool experiment?
I won't publish it, but I'll probably like keep it in my back pocket if I ever run Ryutama and kind of like pull it out as a fun little like, hey, I have the idea of a setting in mind, so I can at least like play off of that a bit.
All right, awesome. All right, Mike, you're up.
Okay. So looking back, I don't know if I did the assignment. I kind of went freestyle here, so I'll leave it up to you, the humble judges, to determine whether or not the assignment was done.
Automatic fail.
Okay, we got one vote in.
I don't know. You get partial credit for that map you did, so you might be able to screech across the finish line anyway.
So let me start actually with the map, just for people that maybe not have seen the map before.
I've got the map. It's so good.
So hopefully you guys can see the map.
Hold on, and now we can.
We can.
Whoa.
So this is the area that I decided to concentrate on, and following the assignment, I decided to create gods for this area. For this world, I wanted the gods to be more hands-on. They would have direct interaction with their clerics and priests. The wrath of the gods is something that was really, real and tangible, and people feared the wrath. And so I wanted to have that kind of as an interesting element to the game instead of gods that were kind of sitting in the background. I wanted these gods to have more of an interaction with the people. So I started creating the gods, and these are the gods that I had come up with. And I hate creating names. I hate it. Every time I create a name, I think it's stupid.
It's the
But I
worst.
started creating some of the gods that I would have in this world, and I got about a dozen of them, and then I started getting a headache. I said, I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And but you can see I started coming up with some names, and you can see I started with the one I call is the parent god or the grandfather. He's the
Actually,
god
we
of the
can't
sun.
see anything other than the map.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah, you might have to reshare.
Let me reshare then. So stop sharing, and I understand. Let's proceed. Window, reshare.
All right, Mike's screen joined. Wow.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
Excellent. So I started with the first god is I call him the grandfather or the parent god. He's the god of the sun, and then I made the goddess of the moon and stars, and the goddess of the sea, and the goddess of nature, and so on and so forth. And like I said, I got to about a dozen of these, and then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so I stopped. But I mean, I gave myself basically a good starting ground, and I think eventually when I'm ready for more self-abuse, I might go back and finish this. But so then I decided to actually concentrate on one geographical area and see what happens. I'm going to have to probably stop and start sharing again, aren't I? So I went back to let me prep what I was going to show you first, and then I'll share again.
Okay.
So I wanted to concentrate on one particular area, and the area was a human kingdom, and I always loved or always liked the tales of King Arthur, and I wanted to have something of that in there. So feudalistic knights with a little bit of magic, and so that was the concept I had. And let me show you what I have, and hopefully you can. This is the last time I need to share. Hopefully this is.
Yep.
So
it's there.
this is the kingdom of Gariel, and
Wow.
that was on the map. And like I said, based very much on the Arthurian legend, everyone has, of course, a coat of arms. You can see the first page here. It has just basically a quick breakdown of the population, the government, some of the religions, some of the gods that you saw on the other page are listed here, and so on and so forth. And then I
I'm
went
changing
into
my grade from an F to an A plus.
Well, thank you very much. So then I
GM
went
Mike
into
ruining the curve for everybody.
So then I went into local history, and then a little bit on the people and customs, and some of the governments and organizations you would find in Gariel, and then some of the influential people. So this is kind of sort of what the assignment was about, where you'd build some people that they might run into, or some villains, or some of those people all kind of mixed in together here. And then geographical area, of course, and then some noteworthy locations. So like Kaler's Wall is a place where it's actually a historical site. The Tiantal Forest is one of the last fortresses of the Elven Empire. The ruins of Tarsha is an ancient ruin that they can discover. The ruins of Fort Charnel is an old prison that has fallen into ruin and is presumably haunted now. And then lastly, the Three Sisters is a place of three mountains that presumably are inhabited by giants. And then giants and goblinoids and other evil creatures. And then, of course, I put a smaller map in there, so it makes it a little easier to reference to. And then I started doing some custom stat blocks for some of the people that would be in the actual kingdom. Like this is the king of Gariel. This is his royal advisor. And then I have some little bits and pieces of there. And then I ran out of time. So that's all I got done. So
I like how he says, "That's all I got."
Yeah,
done."
I know.
I know. Mine's just scattered notes.
So like I said, I don't know if I did the assignment, but
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
What I want to know is which of the gods destroyed the ruins of that city, because I figure a god had to smite that place.
Quite possibly. There is one god of pestilence and death, and maybe he was responsible. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Obviously, you can see by the work I put in here, I like actually doing the physical building over creating gods, and I kind of went crazy, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun doing it. So
Good.
That was amazing. So, are you going to eventually run a campaign with this world, or was this just kind of?
I might, yeah, I think so. I mean, I'd hate to see all this work go to waste or just get shelved and forgotten. So, I mean, if an opportunity arises, yeah, I think I might use it as a campaign world. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think you won the challenge, man. That's,
I didn't mean to. It's always just been a passion of mine. World building has always been my my secret passion. So
At the
right.
map, nobody was catching up to you after that. We were no.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh my god, yeah.
well, thank you. Thank you for all the compliments.
My only contribution was like a sex goddess BDSM dungeon
That looked like a dick.
chapel.
Yeah.
But don't forget, when you write this all down, you've got those 2 islands that have the 2 brothers that are in conflict. Don't forget those guys.
Oh no, I won't. I definitely I wrote that down after our last podcast when we were talking about it. So that's it. That's a keeper for sure. So anyway, so hope you guys found that interesting, amusing, or disturbing, depending on your point of view.
We did.
The only disturbing thing we saw was his temple.
Yeah.
Hey, don't temple shame, man.
No
That's,
temple shaming.
So, all right, cool. So let's move on from there and never speak of this again.
Until next year when it's Gygax 76.
No,
Hey,
that
Rachel.
wasn't that a video game? No, that was anyone ever play the game? I think it was called Interstate 76.
No.
I heard of it.
Okay, it's an old game from like the 90s, and I'm probably dating myself just even talking about it. So
My stepdad almost certainly played it because he was really into card games. A card.
yeah, no, it was actually a car racing game that had like cool 70s elements. And hello, Rachel. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll be actually going on to me ranting like a crazy old man in a second, and
I hope you've got like an intro thing you need. If you don't have one, hate on them. You got to have this like screen thing where it shows your hate.
So, but not. I actually did create a new bumper, although I don't think we'll be using it tonight. But if I can show it, it looks really cool. All right, cool. I'm going to show off new bumper. Here we go.
Yay.
I just almost wish I had a news flash now to like.
Well, Pat could always tell us about the news he was going to say before the helicopters cut him off.
Yeah, let's not crash the show again.
All right. So actually, I will play the button that or the thing that I meant to play. All right. So tonight's I've been thinking about this a lot. So this has been news, at least in part of the Twitter gaming sphere. And I'm sure if anyone just goes, "Wow, James, I don't know what you're talking about," then yeah, that's kind of pretty much it. Maybe I'm a. So, but Pat, I mentioned a little bit to you earlier, and Catherine, do you know what I'm talking about at all?
You just said Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, this is Wizards of
the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
stuff?
Lord of the Rings set. Yep.
The only thing I've heard of that set is that it's cool, and I saw some cards and they look cool. I didn't see anything about lore breaking, but
I don't play Magic. I did get the first D&D set that Wizards did, and I think after I went through the pain of collecting that, I decided I wasn't going to be collecting any more Magic the Gathering sets anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, Magic the Gathering is one of the biggest money makers for Wizards of the Coast. I'm not denying them that. But, and this I think is a trend across a lot of different mediums and not just particular gaming. So I'm going to throw this, out there to you. And then I just want feedback. I'm not even really going to get into the Magic thing because it's going to, I don't know, either it's going to get me banned from YouTube or I won't have any friends left after this is over. But
or the Pinkertons will show up.
yeah, the
Exactly.
Pinkertons will show up. So when you're dealing with lore, right? So let's just say you have classic lore, something that has been passed down through tradition, through books, through movies, through whatever. I understand that with the times that you ultimately change pieces of it. So let's take Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, for example. There was a lot of things missing from that story wise, and or even the Hobbit was even a bigger offender because they started blending in pieces of the Silmarillion into the Hobbit movie in order to basically make it a 3-movie thing. Which, sure, whatever, I'm sure they had to make their money, but for the most part, if you kind of look past a couple of things with it, you can kind of say, all right, I can see what you did here. However, you still used lore from the Silmarillion to fill out these spots. So you didn't go off and just make up something like, oh yeah, and then the ice cream wagon came, the mystical ice cream wagon came with the ring wraiths to Bilbo and time traveled back and got into a limousine and shot each other with laser pistols or whatever, right? It didn't go down that road. But they faithfully did it. I'd like to say, right? You know, not the coolest, but yeah, whatever, they did it.
It wasn't the greatest movie, but although I think The Hobbit got one thing wrong. The movie, I mean, I think in the end they tried to reference Strider, but they seemed to forget that Strider was like 10 years old at that point.
Yeah, it's go ahead, Terry.
No,
or Mike. Yeah.
I was just going to jump in real quick and say that they actually, I heard, and I don't know if this is true, I heard they actually approached Vigo and wanted him to reprise his role, and he flat out rejected it and said, Strider isn't even, he isn't even a teenager. He shouldn't be in this movie. And they said, well, we'll give you lots of money. And he said, I'm not going to do
fucking
it. Yeah. And I have to, props for him for sticking to his guns and not bowing under pressure. But
he should have played his father. That's what he should have done.
That could have been cool.
Strider's father. Interesting.
Yeah, and I believe it was in
Aragorn, son of Arathon. He should have played Arathon.
Well, also they used I'm trying to remember. They used Legolas in the Hobbit movie too, which his father was there, the Elven King, but I don't believe Legolas was mentioned in the Hobbit itself.
He was not.
And
I think he was born, but I don't think he wasn't in there.
And the person that went across the river to get Frodo after he was stabbed, I believe, was an elf named Glorfindel.
Glorfindel was real.
Yeah, so I mean, so again, there's changes. You can kind of see them. A Tolkien purist would just be kind of like, damn your bones, but I'm kind of that mid-section of Tolkien purist. But the thing is that when Professor Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, he wrote it as kind of actually what he wanted to write was British folklore. He felt that while Britain has a lot of great things that happened over time, it was all things that happened based on other races, the Saxons, the Proto-French, the Norms, and the Romans. So a lot of stuff that happened in Britain was based on other cultures coming to Britain in order to take it over, I guess, and oppress the tribes that were there. But Tolkien wanted to have something that was a little bit more of a modern uh, fairy tale, a modern story that the Britons could be proud of. And if you look at the analogs to a lot of it, you see a lot of the cultures. So, I mean, the hobbits are obviously the Brits, and I believe Tolkien is even. And please correct me if I'm wrong, people out there in YouTube land. Um, the elves were actually based on Finnish folklore, I believe, as well as the dwarves. Some Nordic, but it was a lot more Finnish, and just various things. So, what kind of got me about Watsy's Lord of the Rings set is they kind of threw all that. They threw Tolkien's vision, I feel, out the window with the set. And I really hate to get into the reasons why, because it makes me come across as kind of someone who's a little intolerant, but it's just for the fact that I am someone who loved the stories, who visualized the characters in certain ways. And honestly, it kind of, I don't know, it makes me a little angry that they didn't represent Tolkien's work to, I don't know, the way it should be.
It felt like they were, or from the sound, what it sounds like to me is that they were trying to not represent Tolkien's work. They were trying to represent Rings of Power.
Now, that could be true.
I don't know for
Rings
sure.
of Power is definitely strayed far, far, far away from canon.
Hey, Dana. Dana's joined us this evening. And actually, Dana, I have something that I'm going to show later on the show that actually you and I will be the only people here fanboying over and a little bit later. But anyway, I understand that we live in a world now where we do have to have representation, right? And that's totally fine, and that's not 100% what I'm going at, because they did what they did and it's done. And the cards actually look really great. The representations look pretty awesome. The artwork is really nice. But in a sense, it would be kind of like I'm trying to think of it would be like if I went out and said, "Hey, I'm going to do a whole set of trading cards based on Mulan," and then made Mulan white. Or I'm going to do
or Asian.
Or I'm going to do a Black Panther comic, but I'm going to make
I'm
T'Challa.
thinking of Pocahontas.
Huh?
Oh my god!
I was thinking of Pocahontas. I said or Asian. I'm like, wait a minute.
I was going to say, I'm thinking about this, and
so and again, like I said, I don't want it to come off like I'm sounding intolerant towards things, but to me, Lord of the, after reading the books, watching the movies, buying the toys, but that sort of thing, being very enveloped in Tolkien lore, it's kind of a weird, like, I don't know, like, why?
Can I bring up an example that I like to bring up when this conversation comes around, which it does more and more increasingly these days. So Miles Morales is Black and Puerto Rican, and he's Spider-Man.
Yep.
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
And the reason nobody gives a shit is because it was done well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what matters most to the fans. Does it make sense? Is it done well? And if the answer to both those questions is yes, then no one gives a shit about race or class or well, you shouldn't. Like most well-adjusted people don't. There's people that are irrationally angry about everything. But I think that when it comes to, when the nerds get accused of being racist or gatekeepers or some shit like that, I think it's because sometimes these studios or these creative gatekeepers make terrible creative choices for the wrong reasons, and it reflects in the work. Now, when they made Spider-Man a half black, half Puerto Rican kid, they did it the right way, and now look at how successful fucking the Across the Spider-Verse movie is huge. It's going to be like $4 billion, right? and everyone loves it. It's getting great reviews. I took my kids to see it last weekend. Like
Oh, nice.
nobody, if you do it the right way, nobody cares.
Exactly.
But if you half-ass it and you shove it in, people will not forgive you, and then you'll get all kinds of hate. Because I'm sure when Spider-Man Ultimate or whatever the Miles Morales stuff, that was like early 2000s.
Yeah.
So the internet wasn't what it is today. But I'm sure there was some backlash. But for the most part,
there was some backlash at the start. Some.
But here's the thing, and I'm going to go 100% behind you on this. But if you think about it, Miles Morales is an original character. Sure, he's Spider-Man, but he's Miles Morales. And actually, in the comics, he's known as Miles Morales. He has spider powers, and he kind of has taken over for Spider-Man. But this
I don't think he's taken over in the comics. I think he's kind of just doing his own thing.
Yeah, he's another Spider-Man per se. But I think the point I'm trying to make is Miles Morales was originally made as an ethnic character. Therefore, there's nothing to bitch about because this is an original character, and this is who Miles Morales is. It's the same thing with so there's an interview with Michael B. Jordan. Do we all remember Michael B. from at least Black Panther and Creed and other stuff? Yep. So he was interviewed about doing Superman, and they wanted to basically change Kal and the whole Superman thing to a black man, which, whatever. That's the studio, what they're doing. But Michael B. Jordan said this, and honestly, I could have driven to Los Angeles and gave the man a hug. I would probably have been shot by his bodyguards, but that was the emotion that I was saying, is that he said, why is it that Hollywood always has to give black people hand-me-down characters? Why can't the studios get out there and do something original and give us something that we could be proud of? And that was like, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
Well, they did it. It was called Steel. You know what I mean? Like,
all right. Well, okay. Well, that was the original Michael Jordan who played.
No, it was Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, Shaquille O'Neal. But my point is that, and there's a couple of there's a couple of comic book artists who've actually kind of said the same thing, and Michelle Rodriguez said something similar just recently. She was like in Dungeons and Dragons. She was in the
Fast and Furious.
Yeah, Fast and Furious films. And she also said something as well, because they were talking about, I forgot. I think it was Green Lantern or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that she was being looked at as Green Lantern, and they asked her about it in an interview. She was walking to her car, but she pretty much kind of said around the same thing. She says, it's like, why not, why aren't we doing original characters based on the race or ethnic origin or whatever of the character? And to me, that's, I think, where my whole bitching about Wizards of the Coast comes from, is that Tolkien actually has various ethnic races within the Lord of the Rings series. The people in the southern lands were of darkened skin and things like that. But when you kind of race swap Theoden, Arwen, Aragorn, right? So if you look at the Rohirrim, I think I'm pronouncing that right, they were based on frickin' Vikings, like Northmen. Like, they didn't have, cornrows. I mean, that's just, and Gandalf wasn't particularly Asian. I mean, sure, you can reimagine him as Asian, but so it's not that I have a problem, I think, more or less with the way they did it, right? To Pat's point, it's not that, like, personally, I don't care. I don't play Magic the Gathering. I'm just bitching about it, I guess, on the sense of that I'm a Tolkien fan, and I would like to see Tolkien represented as the works that he had created. And and if you're going to do something like that, so one of the things I really liked about Rings of Power, because Rings of Power is excellent. Like, honestly, all the characters in that are absolutely cool, and I dig where it's going. But Amazon said kind of in the beginning, after they kind of got beat up over their influencer sessions that happened about a year before, they came out and said, well, we couldn't get the rights to the Silmarillion, so this is inspired by Tolkien. Which that set of words right there goes, all right, it's inspired by Tolkien. You're not trying to recreate Tolkien verbatim. So all the changes make sense. Rock on, carry on. You do you.
It's Tolkien fanfic.
Yeah, exactly. It's very expensive Tolkien fanfic. But the Lord of the Rings didn't give that inspired tag on it. They're just like, oh, well, this is Lord of the Rings. And it's like, no, it's actually not, but you pretend.
I've got an opinion on that. I think I've expressed this opinion before on something else. As a writer, we understand that when we create something and it moves on to be somebody else's project in a different medium, like a movie, that it is always something that is inspired by what you're doing. It is not a slavish copy of what you've written. And the example I have for that is James Patterson went to the opening of the first Alex Cross movie with Morgan Freeman, and he's sitting in the movie watching it, and the first scene has the main character arguing with the woman, and he leans over to Morgan Freeman and goes, "Who is that?" He's like, "That's his sister." Oh, okay. In the books, he doesn't have a sister. So, but they needed a sister because they had to have somebody for him to speak to and bounce things off of. And anytime you as a writer, as a creator, like Tolkien would have done, if he'd known that there were things like movies that were going to be made, he would probably have understood that they're going to take what you've done and you just have to go ahead and accept that it's going to be its own product. It may have similarities to your product, but it is not the same thing.
And I'm sorry, Pat, I just want to say though that believe it or not, Tolkien was a hard ass while he was alive about Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, because he was approached multiple times during his life to make it into a movie, and he shot it down. Actually, the Beatles were actually going to do I think it was The Hobbit, or maybe it was Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien was like, no, fuck no. And there was a quote that was pretty hilarious along with it. It wasn't until Professor Tolkien died and his son Christopher was a little bit more loosey-goosey with the property, and that's when we started seeing things like the Peter Jackson movie, which Christopher died just before that actually was released, but and the cartoon, the Hobbit cartoon, that my favorite, the Rankin Bass stuff that was done in the 70s, even the Ralph Bakshi stuff was all approved by the Tolkien estate, but mostly in part because of Christopher, not particularly because of J.R.R. I don't even know what his first. That's sad. I actually think the guy's really cool. I have no idea. John, Jim, James, whatever starts with a J. Jared, Joseph.
I think it might actually be John. I'd have to look and see.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, Pat. I so cut you off, so I apologize.
Oh, it's all good. I really wanted to agree with Terry, because I can remember the first time that I had written a script and someone else shot it. And I just remember being like, this isn't it at all. What the fuck are you doing? You ruined it, And that's it. They didn't really. That's the creative process, is that you're the writer, and then someone else, if it's something that's going to be produced, right, then there's somebody that comes in and handles the visual aspect of it. There's actors that bring something to the characters. There's all kinds of other fingers that go in that pie that create the next iteration of it. And you really can't, once it comes out of your head and goes on the paper and then someone else picks it up, your claim to it's kind of gone. It just kind of enters. That's not what collaboration is. I wish writers had more power and we could do that, but then we would stop being writers and we'd be producers. And that's why that
would be a terrible thing.
Yeah. Some people hold on their stuff closer. Like you said, he wouldn't give up the rights when he was still alive. The other thing I want to bring up real quick is, like, I'm not as old as you guys, but I am old enough to remember an era and where not everything was so lore driven. Canon wasn't something that normal people worried about. When you watch the A-Team, it started with the A-Team coming into a town. They're helping a single mother solve a problem. And then at the end of that episode, they're leaving the town to go to the next one. And then the next episode starts, and guess how it begins? With the A-Team showing up at a town to solve a problem. And that was it week after week after week. And there was no overarching mythology or anything really. It was just that's what it was. And now that nerd culture is so prevalent, everything has to have like this shared universe where everything's connected. And you can blame Dallas because it was the first primetime serialized drama, like a soap opera, right? You can blame Buffy, whatever you want to do, but like I feel that we've become like we fetishize that too much now. We fetishize canon, and I think that there's something to be said about just things that stand alone. Monster of the Week episodes, there's value in that stuff. You know what I mean? Some of the best X-Files episodes have nothing to do with the virus or the black goo or Mulder's sister. It's just them versus the fucking werewolves in Toronto or whatever. You know what I mean? Or wherever they shot it at. And I wish that we would get back to that a little bit.
Reminds me of Supernatural with how the early seasons were Monster of the Week, and then like by season 6 or 7, it was like, oh, the Leviathans, and the entire season was about the Leviathans. And I'm like, this is the most boring season I have ever seen because it's not Monster of the Week. It is what's happening with the Leviathans this time.
Yeah, which brother doesn't want to do it anymore? It depends which season you're watching it. I watched Supernatural for maybe the first. Whenever I think it was season 5 or season 7, when it ended with the younger one starting a family, and Dean was in the Sam was gonna live. He had memory wiped. That's when Eric Kripke left the show, and I was like, all right, fine. And then it went on for like another 7 years after that. Yeah. And it got too lore heavy, and I think you ruined things with that, and it just gives fans stuff to argue about.
No, I totally agree, and I think it wasn't meant to be a segment that I needed a resolution on or anything. I just needed to kind of voice my opinion that I think Hollywood and manufacturers, which is the coast, other companies too. I don't know, and maybe it's just because I'm someone who loves canon when it comes to certain lore. And maybe that's something I just need to get over. But when it comes to things that I got really excited, I'm like, oh my god, I hadn't bought Magic cards. I haven't bought Magic cards in years, and I was just kind of like going, I will buy Lord of the Rings sets because I love Lord of the Rings. And I looked at the cards and I'm like, fuck you, Watsy, I'm not buying this shit. Which actually they saved me some money, so I should say thank you, Watsy, for
there you go,
for doing what you're doing. But going into your Monster of the Week thing, this kind of leads to a mini thing that I kind of wanted to talk about when I was going to say, hey, I want to show you some nostalgia from when I was a kid in the 70s. How many of you had like monster movie shows on network TV or your local access TV growing up?
Oh, dude, I'm Svengoolie.
Okay, yeah.
Scooby-Doo count?
No, Scooby-Doo didn't. So there was a genre of TV shows, and New York had them, Chicago had it, San Francisco had it, which I'm going to show the intro to that in a moment. But it was basically you had a guest, like a host, and the host would come out either in this. Elvira actually is another one who is famous for her thing when she was actually basing herself off of someone called Vampira, who I'm not 100% sure where Vampira was from, but
comic strip.
The Misfits. Wow, whatever.
Yeah, but anyway, still there was these shows, and the host would come in and introduce a show, and it would go to breaks, and the host would come back out and tell you about what's going on in the movie or whatnot. And that's where I first saw Night of the Living Dead. That's where I saw like Legend of Hell House, like a bunch of classic horror movies I watched because of shows like Creature Features, which was ours in Northern California. Yep. So yeah, John. Oh no, John Stanley, but it was Bob Wilkins, I believe. Dana, who just looking at chat here.
I think the first one was Ghoul out of Ohio.
Uh-huh.
And he actually was director Paul Thomas Anderson, who did Boogie Nights.
Oh.
That was his dad.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I think Ghoulardi was the first one because they did someone wrote a book about it that I remember reading about a decade ago.
Yeah, so Bob Stanley, Bob Wilkins was was kind of a media personality on KTVU Channel 2, which was an independent program that later on got bought by Fox, and it became like Fox 2 or something like that. But he did two shows. He did a show called Captain Cosmic, which I actually also have the trailer to that too, and I'll play it. But he did a show called Creature Features, and Bob Wilkins never actually dressed up in like a costume. He actually just kind of looked like a nerd, but was also kind of made it interesting. So let me play this, just because this brings back just fond memories for myself as well. And Mike will recognize this because I actually chopped this footage up to do our introduction to the Curse of Strahd campaign. So if anyone ever goes back and watches those, you would also see part of this clip as well.
Can you feature that awful creature? Can you feature that ugly creature? Creature features and feature features about creatures. Creature features. Now the strangest thing about this show on two is its host, Bob Wilkins, and he brings it to you. Features and creature features and more creatures and more features. And the creature's gonna get you tonight. You better not turn out your bedroom lights. He'll grab your head and give it such a bite. You may even die from just a fright. Ain't nothing gonna be, baby, I'll play me alright. Cause the creature gonna get you, baby.
Creature gonna get you, baby.
So that was from the 70s, and that was our opening to Creature Features.
That was awesome.
Yeah, so it was so. But anyway, as Dana mentioned, I kind of mentioned, he also did a TV show during the afternoon called Captain Cosmic, which showed things like Ultraman. That's where I first saw Ultraman. Space Giants, old Flash Gordon serials. That's where I kind of got my taste for watching Flash Gordon. Now this one, if you think the first one was cheesy, this is incredibly cheesy. So I'll play this one. It's a little shorter. So here we go.
Look, in the sky.
It's a bird. It's a plane.
It's a giant chicken hawk. No, it's Captain Cosmic.
Captain Cosmic, faster than a speeding BART train. Captain Cosmic, able to leap tall buildings with amazing ease. Captain Cosmic, stronger than the entire 49er football team. Captain Cosmic, a defender of truth from a faraway planet here on Earth to entertain and amaze us with fantastic science fiction adventure. Join Captain Cosmic and Wonder Robot 2T2, his trusty constant companion.
And that was the opening to Captain Cosmic. So definitely cheesy. You can tell the strings holding up Captain Cosmic's cape as he's flying through the air. Oh yeah, Dana said Johnny Sacco and his giant robot too is another of the shows that they showed on on what you call it, Captain Cosmic. But that was the 70s, and it was just kind of a time when, I don't know, just things like that were incredibly cool. And to a kid who was, 9 or 10 years old when that came out, that was high tech stuff, man. Robot 2T2. Hell, I didn't know any better. That was awesome. And also, they managed to get away with playing the Star Wars theme too, and not get sued. So anyway, so you had Svengoolie and
yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that he had how I knew Svengoolie. Svengoolie was a little bit before my time during its first run, but Rich Coase, who's Svengoolie, had the Coase Zone, which was an after-school kids show when I was a kid. So that's how I got to know him. And then I remember we would be watching it at our parents' different people's houses, and sometimes someone would walk in the room and be like, "Oh, that's Svengoolie." And we're like, "Oh, who's that?" Well, before in the early 80s and stuff, he had done Svengoolie and then retired it and then brought it back at the end of the 90s. And now it's super popular, and I think it's syndicated all over the U.S. But yeah.
Oh, wow. Terry, did you have anything like that growing up?
I lived out in the middle of the country where we had 2.5 channels.
2.5 channels?
2.5 channels, because the UHF channel was really terrible. You could never get good reception. The remote control was me and a pair of pliers.
Okay. So and Mike, did you have anything like that?
Same as Terry. I was another country bumpkin that we depended heavily on the UHF. And rabbit ears. Don't forget the rabbit ears with tinfoil.
Did you get told, go stand over there and hold this while the parents are watching it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the stories.
And Catherine, I take it you didn't have this up in Canada?
No. And thankfully, I was born just in time for reception with TVs to be slightly better than try and maneuver around the antenna.
And I will definitely give my, there's a shock, JC, that you would actually even do this. So San Francisco actually never got cable TV until around 1982. But what we did have is something called microwave television, which was basically, it was transmitted through microwave beams, and you bought these like dish. It was like basically dish TV for the 70s. But my grandfather wouldn't pick it up, right? Because it was, it was an unnecessary thing at the time. And but I remember you could go to certain channels and pick up, it's choppy, reception. So if you watched it, you might get a quick shot of like of something going on. And I remember this well because, yes, I'm a weirdo, is that they had basically equivalent of the Playboy channel for that. And, being 11 or so, Benny Hill, sure, you got to see boobs at the Benny Hill show, if anyone remembers that. But in order to get the good stuff, you had to watch the microwave TV so you can actually get those, like when it actually comes coherent for like the whole 2-3 seconds. So anyway.
National Geographic, that's where it's at, buddy.
It was called Spice, and that's what the network was called by us.
Oh. Okay.
And I would just listen to the people fuck, and that was enough for me. When you're like 13 years old, like you didn't actually like see everything. It would come clear enough for me to kind of figure out who the players were, and then I would just listen.
So Pat, all you needed was the soundtrack. You didn't even need the movie.
And my imagination. It was like Penthouse Forum. Sometimes that's the best part. I guess it just depends. It depends how you're stimulated.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't. Do they even still publish things like Penthouse Forums and
Literotica?
Okay, because I remember during, and again, now this is nostalgia, the pornography nostalgia. There was when there used to be a store, a restaurant called Tommy's Joint in San Francisco. I think actually it finally went away after years and years and years, but down the street from there was a store called Frenchie's, and Frenchie's was an adult store. And we would go have beers, get drunk, eat at Tommy's Joint, and then walk down to Frenchie's drunk and obnoxious and go to the porn store. But I still remember one magazine that sticks out in my head. And actually, I was telling my wife about this a couple of days ago, is there was a magazine called Smothered in Tits.
Mm.
And
I see.
yeah, and it was prolific to a early 20s JC, and eventually
Oh yeah, like it went away.
Hold on here. I think we need to go ahead and stop right here and say I now understand where your temple came from.
Yeah. But I was just gonna say I ended up getting it as a gift from a friend like a year later. He actually went out and found a copy for me and bought it. But yeah, I mean, it was the 80s, it was the 70s, it was a different time in the world of adult entertainment. So I'll just leave it there. And with that being said, let's move before I get myself into trouble. Let's move on to our I guess our last segment. So here we go. And of course, it's not 4:30. So what I'm going to do, so we can actually give Pat like visual and movement, I'm going to go ahead and hide a few people because we know that basically works, I think. So let's see here. And aha, he's alive. So actually what I'll do is
I think you should swap me out and
there we go. You're swapped out. All right. So anyway, let us let's see, can I make you? Nope, that's not what I wanted. Can I do this? There we go. So anyway, should I play the, this is a stupid question I ask every week, but should I play the trailer or do you want to introduce it first?
No, you can play the trailer
okay,
first.
So here we go.
The Mayhem? They taught Motley Crue how to shred and party. They tattooed their name on me when I was passed out. What? These guys go hard.
I was in college the first time I saw the Mayhem play.
I grew up idolizing Dr. T. I bought gold grills just to be like him. Say cuckoo-cuckoo.
Well, we got a little sidetracked by the 80s.
For sure.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm Nora Singh from Waxtown Records. I would love to help you make an album.
Well, all right.
Nora?
What's happening?
I think Animal digs you.
I dig the animal as well.
I've been waiting my entire life for an Electric Mayhem album. Finally, somebody is making it happen.
Okay, it begins.
W.
Very good, Animal.
What say we bring the old school?
And you bring the new.
How about a hot music collab, huh?
I think Animal's all ready to lay down our drum track.
That was perfect.
What? What?
I don't think the band is digging any of this.
It is so hot, I'm gonna pass out.
You feeling this?
Yeah. We did it.
See? Happy.
They're always happy. Watch. Hey guys, look. I got a fork.
You did it.
You showed us there's a whole world beyond the Mayhem.
It's trending. You did this.
With one tweet, you started beef with all of music.
And our vengeance shall be swift.
I like this show. Lots of drama.
Let's get back to you doing what you do best. I'm ready to roll with it.
Well, good, because we're ready to rock with it. We're gonna rock.
Welcome to the Mayhem.
Rock on. We're more than just a band, we're a family. All right.
Electric Mayhem. Is that a vacuum?
Thank you.
Doesn't get any weirder than that, am I right?
You know it.
See this camera? Okay, do not look into this camera. Action.
Talk about a cliffhanger.
Disney Plus is gonna love this.
Everybody watch.
All right, and that is Muppet Mayhem. So that well, first I'm going to say before I turn it over to you, that looked amazing. I mean, first of all, Danny Trejo, like I'm already sold. Cheech and Chong I saw in there. I mean, there was just that was like an all-star just cameo cast.
Well, and honestly, like I love the Muppet cameos because you know that just below the frame line, there's a person with their hand up the Muppet, and Danny Trejo is just trying to be cool about it and act like that's not what's really happening. And that was, I'm going off my notes right now. These things are already fucking trash. But that I grew up watching the Muppet Show every morning. The old school Muppet Show from like the 70s. They would replay that at like 5:30 in the morning when my mom was get me ready to go to the babysitter. So like 5:30 in the morning every day, 5 days a week for as early as I can remember, I would watch those Muppet reruns. And I've always loved it. Like that was my, some people grow up super fixated on Disney or whatever. Mine was just the Muppets. And the older I get, the more I appreciated the cameos because you watch those old episodes and it would be like Sylvester Stallone or Liza Minnelli, like sitting there, like talking to the Muppets, and the Muppets are talking back, and that it's just like some guy like this, and they're trying to keep a straight face. And as an adult, that makes the cameos even more hilarious to me because I understand what it takes to produce that. But yes, there are lots of great cameos in this. You can see from the trailer, there's a Kevin Smith episode. So basically, this series is just about the band, the Electric Mayhem. There's no Kermit, there's no Miss Piggy. It just focuses on the band as they try to record their first album. So it does. The Muppets have always been about showbiz. Fozzie was a comedian, Miss Piggy was an actress, and this kind of looks at the music industry. And the two episodes that are definitely worth talking about is there's an episode called Break On Through where they go to Joshua Tree to take some time apart from recording the album, like to kind of like decompress, and they eat some bad marshmallows and they all have psychedelic trips, and that's where the Weird Al sequence happens. And then the album decides the record company decides to shoot a documentary like the Beatles Get Back, right? And they can't get Peter Jackson, so they hire Kevin Smith. And that's the Kevin Smith episode, but in true Kevin Smith fashion, he completely fucks it up. And they end up having to bring in Peter Jackson at the end, and Peter Jackson makes a Meet the Feebles reference that a small portion of the internet lost their shit over because it basically means canon that the Muppets take place in the same universe as Meet the Feebles. And if you're not familiar with Meet the Feebles, as much as we talk about Peter Jackson on this show and Lord of the Rings, before the guy that made Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies got to make those movies, he made an incredibly fucking dirty Muppets movie called Meet the Feebles. And JC, has anyone seen that?
Actually, I'm finding the trailer now because Rachel also kind of mentioned, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to do sound with this, so let me see how this works. And
all right, well, I'll buy you some time. So the showrunner on this was Adam Goldberg, who you may know from TV's The Goldbergs. He's also responsible for writing the screenplay for 2009's Fanboys, a movie about a group of high school friends that reunite in 1998 to break into Skywalker Ranch and see Star Wars Episode 1 before one of the group dies of cancer. That movie is okay. I think it kind of makes Episode 1 seem better than it is. I think if that exact scenario had played out and there was a group of like childhood friends that broke into Skywalker Ranch to see Episode 1 before one of them died of cancer, I could imagine them going through what happens in the movie and then being incredibly fucking disappointed to find out that their friend is about to die of cancer now and Episode 1 completely sucks. But Goldberg did a good job with this, and hopefully there's more stuff in the Muppets cinematic universe.
All right, so let's see if and people online, if you could just tell me if there's audio or not. But this is Meet the Feebles.
So, you want to join the Feebles?
Oh, rather. Meet the Feebles! Meet the Feebles!
Meet the Feebles. The movie that began as family entertainment, but went horribly wrong.
Have you got any smack?
Smack.
The film the authorities tried to stop.
Oh, what beautiful white fur. God, my dear.
The story that rocked the puppet world.
This is a family show, for Christ's sake.
Sex.
I'm hot, Bletch, but not the way you think.
Animal husbandry.
Why did you bring it here? It's not mine. You know it's not.
We'll let the court decide that, shall we?
Meet the Feebles turns the cabbage patch into the killing fields.
Funny little sandhopper
It's
basking
fun.
in the sun. Dancing in the hopping has lots of fun. A bit of sand landing in that hollow eye.
It's
Sand
thrilling.
sitting by
It's contagious.
It's the big one, Harry.
No, it can't be. I've taken precautions.
Corruption.
Barry, do me a line.
Lust.
Feeling shy, are you, Bletch?
Light romance. From the director of Bad Taste.
Did you realize you were sitting on his face?
No, I felt a bit uncomfortable, but I thought it was my hemorrhoid.
Please, God, I know I've been a bad bunny, but if you make
Nothing
me well again,
is sacred.
Meet the Feebles! Meet the Feebles! The not your average, ordinary people. Meet the Feebles!
Meet the Feebles is about to be released on you.
Have you ever noticed the beautiful lighting in this toilet?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Disney let them include that reference in the Peter Jackson episode, but the Muppets, the Electric Mayhem asks Peter Jackson how the Feebles are doing, and they have a brief exchange about it. And
yeah.
So now it's canon. It's canon.
Speaking about canon. All right, I'm going to bring everybody back, and we'll close out. So let's see. Let's bring. And before I hit Mike, I'm going to go ahead and there we go. Oh, you're still actually animated. We just lost Catherine.
Oh no.
All right. Well, cool. Hey, everyone's kind of moving, sort of. So that's good. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and close for this episode. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of things here that I usually do in the beginning, but I will do now. So let me find where they are. So, as always, you can watch us here on YouTube at Show Us Your Crits. If you like to, throw us a couple of coins, a couple of shekels to kind of keep us going, you can subscribe to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/grindhouse_media. Also, too, I just talked about YouTube, so here's YouTube. We also, if you're watching us on Twitch, that's twitch.tv/grindhouse media. If you just kind of want to, again, throw us a couple of coins here and there, we do have a coffee account, and that's coffee/grindhouse media. And if you want something for your hard-earned shekels, you can definitely buy our merch at thegrindhouse.creator spring.com, which is our Teespring store. And so anyway, as I said, so I'll just kind of bring us back to a normal cadence of people here. So I'm JC. I'm the host. You can find me at Grindhouse Media on Twitter, where you can see me rant and rave and see all my hot button topic stuff all at once. Believe me, it's pretty tame compared to other stuff, but I love getting in my TTRPG battles on Twitter. And we'll go around the room and have everybody where they can find you. So, Pat.
Dr. X2112 at Twitter.
All right. Terry, where can people find you?
Amazon, Terry Mixon, write science fiction. You can also find me on YouTube, where the DRS podcast does their writing business.
Awesome. Catherine.
You can find me at Epi the Tome on Twitter and on simplypf2e.com.
All right. And Mike.
Running the dirty streets of San Francisco because I just found out I'm a replicant.
All right.
Oh, no.
All right, everyone. Well, have a great evening. Thank you for watching. And please, if you're watching after the fact, leave a comment. Note, please subscribe. Give us a like. YouTube has that thing called an algorithm that if not enough people give thumbs up, we kind of get lost. And I'll see if we get
Ring
a
that
copyright.
bell.
Yeah. Oh, ring the bell. Yep. I'll see if we get a copyright strike or not for Meet the Feebles, but I kind of doubt it. So anyway, hopefully we at least introduced you to that, if anything. And I will say good night.